The Travis Walton abduction. Turn off the lights. Get comfortable. Because what I'm about to tell you happened to a real man in a real forest on a real November night in 1975. And depending on what you choose to believe, it may be the most extraordinary thing that has ever happened to a human being, or something far more sinister. Part 1. The Forest. The Apache-Sitgreaves National Forest stretches across the high plateau of northeastern Arizona, a vast wilderness of ponderosa pine and cold autumn silence. In November, the days are short and the nights arrive quickly, swallowing the tree line in absolute darkness long before any working man is ready to go home. Travis Walton was 22 years old. He was lean, quiet, and had spent much of his young life in these woods. He worked for a logging crew led by his close friend Mike Rogers, a team of 7 men contracted by the U.S. Forestry Service to thin out overgrown timber in a remote section of the forest known as Turkey Springs. The work was hard, the hours were long, and by November of 1975, the crew was already running weeks behind schedule. The details of that delay would later become important. On the evening of November 5th, the men finished their work and climbed into Rogers' truck for the long drive back to civilization. 7 men, 1 vehicle, a dark road threading through a corridor of ancient trees. By all accounts, it was a routine end to a routine day. Then someone noticed the light. It was filtering through the pines, pale, shifting, wrong. Not a campfire, not another vehicle, something else entirely. Rogers slowed the truck. The men leaned forward in their seats, peering through the windshield at the tree line ahead. And then they saw it. Hovering above a clearing, no more than 30 yards away, was a disc-shaped object. It was approximately 20 feet across and 8 feet in height, its surface smooth and metallic, reflecting a pale golden luminescence onto the forest floor beneath it. It produced no sound that anyone could hear. It simply hung there, impossibly still, as though gravity itself had agreed to make an exception. The men sat frozen, and then Travis Walton opened the door and got out. Part 2. The Light. What compels a person to walk toward the unknown? Whether it is curiosity, recklessness, or something older and more instinctual, Walton himself has never been able to fully explain it. He moved quickly across the clearing, drawn toward the craft as the others shouted from the truck behind him. He was close enough to see the object's surface, to feel something. A vibration, perhaps, or simply the disorientation of being near a thing that shouldn't exist. He looked up, and then the beam came. A concentrated shaft of blue-white light struck him in the chest. Witnesses later described it differently. Some said it looked like an explosion, others said it was more like he was simply lifted and thrown. His body left the ground. His arms went wide. He fell. He hit the earth and did not move. For a long moment, no one did anything. Then the panic broke like a wave. Mike Rogers floored the accelerator and the truck tore back down the forest road. The men were certain in that moment that their friend was dead, that they had watched him die. They drove for nearly 15 minutes before Rogers stopped the truck, turned it around, and drove back. When they returned to the clearing, the light was gone, and so was Travis Walton. Part 3. The Search. At 7:45 in the evening, a member of the crew placed a call to the Navajo County Sheriff's Office. The men who sat across from officers that night, 6 working-class loggers from small Arizona towns, told a story that nobody in that room knew what to do with. Sheriff Marlon Gillespie organized a search. Volunteers combed the area. A helicopter swept the forest. Tracking dogs found nothing. There was no blood, no footprints leading away from the clearing, no body, no Travis Walton. The days passed. 1, then 2, then 3. Suspicion, as it inevitably does, turned toward the men who were last seen with him. The logging crew was subjected to polygraph examinations. They were asked whether they had harmed Travis Walton, whether they knew where his body was, whether they were telling the truth about what they had seen. 5 of the 6 passed. The 6th result was inconclusive. The polygraph examiner's written report concluded that the men genuinely believed they had witnessed a UFO and genuinely believed Travis Walton had been taken aboard it. Investigators were not satisfied. Some whispered about murder, others suggested an elaborate hoax, noting that the crew was far behind on their forestry contract and that a dramatic disappearance might buy them time or sympathy or both. But there was still no body, and no Travis Walton. Part 4. The Return. 5 days after he vanished, in the early hours of November 11th, a phone rang at the home of Travis Walton's family in Snowflake, Arizona. A faint voice on the line said he needed help, that he was at the payphone outside the Amoco station in Heber, that he was hurt. When they found him, Travis Walton was slumped inside the phone booth. He was disoriented, dehydrated. He had lost 12 pounds in 5 days. His clothing, according to some accounts, was on backwards. He believed he had been gone for only a few hours. When they told him it had been 5 days, he did not believe them at first. What Travis Walton described in the days and weeks that followed, in interviews, in a polygraph of his own, and eventually in his 1978 book, was this. He had regained consciousness lying on a flat surface beneath a curved metallic ceiling. A light above him was pale and diffuse. He thought at first that he was in a hospital. He was not in a hospital. Standing near him were 3 figures, short, hairless, with heads that seemed too large for their bodies, and eyes, enormous, dark, expressionless eyes, that simply watched him. He screamed. He reached for something to use as a weapon and found nothing. The beings made no sound. Their expressions did not change. And that stillness, Walton would later say, may have terrified him more than anything else. He ran. He found a corridor, then another room, then a human-looking figure in a helmet who led him, silently, without explanation, through the interior of the craft. He was placed on a table. Then something descended toward his face. And then he was outside, lying on a road near Heber, Arizona, watching a disk of light rise silently into the night sky and disappear. Part 5. The Question. In the years that followed, the Travis Walton case became one of the most examined, most debated, and most divisive alleged abductions in the history of UFO research. Skeptics were thorough in their objections. Science writer Philip Klass pointed out that just 2 weeks before the incident, NBC had broadcast a primetime film about an alien abduction. He suggested the crew, already anxious about their delayed contract, had found a convenient solution. Michael Shermer argued that the polygraph results, so often cited as evidence, prove nothing. The tests measure stress responses, not truth. And a researcher named Charlie Weiser later put forward the theory that the old Gentry Fire Tower, deep in the forest and never searched during the investigation, may have been used to simulate the light that the crew saw that night. None of these theories have been proven, nor has the abduction. What remains is this. 6 men saw something in that forest. Their accounts were consistent across decades of retelling. They passed polygraphs and withstood interrogation. One of them, Mike Rogers, did, in 2021, post a message suggesting the abduction had been fabricated. He retracted it weeks later. He has never elaborated on what he meant. Travis Walton himself has never changed his account. Not once in nearly 50 years. He has submitted to polygraphs, appeared in documentaries, written books, and sat across from skeptics who challenged him with evidence he has consistently dismissed or countered. Whether that consistency is the mark of a truthful man or an extraordinarily committed one is a question only you can answer. The Apache-Sitgreaves National Forest is still there. The trees are older now, the roads are quieter, and on cold November nights, when the light dies early and the pines stand black against a sky full of stars, it is perhaps worth asking, not whether you believe in what Travis Walton claims to have seen, but what it would mean if he was telling the truth. Sleep well, my friend.